Pity those fools who think college football is finding a balance. It was only a few years ago that Clemson coach Dabo Swinney was everyone's newly anointed king of college football. Little old Clemson, he said, and that made us all laugh, but maybe he was right. Or at least not entirely wrong. Take a look at the recruiting rankings after the beginning of the early signing period, and it's easy to see that Clemson is no longer competing with the elites of college football. On Thursday, Dabo's latest class was ranked number 17 nationally. That's a major drop from the 2021 recruiting cycle and 2020. In January of 2019, Clemson won its second national title in 3 years, and both were against mighty Alabama. Everything was going so great. What happened? Dabo Swinney's staff was gutted recently, but it's not that, and this isn't a column about how Nick Saban is the greatest coach of all time because he can survive attrition among his assistants. Saban is definitely the GOAT, but the bigger trend is that college football's best players continue to rush towards the SEC, which is dominating this broken sport more than ever before. That's great for fans of those schools, but the overall health of college football from a national perspective continues to deteriorate. Related, every recruit from Alabama's signing class. Related, how recruiting evaluators rated classes for Auburn, Alabama. Related, will Auburn try to add another QB? First, look at the field for the college football playoff. Number 1 Alabama and number 3 Georgia played against each other in the SEC championship game, and they both were selected for the 4-team CFP. What, y'all couldn't find anyone else? Nope, apparently not, because number 4 Cincinnati, a group of 5 outlier, is rounding out the invitational tournament along with number 2 Michigan. 3 major conferences and Notre Dame, with 1 loss just like Alabama, Georgia and Michigan, were shut out. The college football playoff is working on expansion, but it can't get here fast enough. When it does, it needs to include as many teams as possible. 12 should be the minimum, but 16 with the higher seeds all playing first-round games at home would be even better. Plans for expansion are currently on hold because some people in the room continue to stew over the SEC adding Texas and Oklahoma. They have a right to be upset, but the sport of college football would be better served if the so-called alliance of the ACC, Pac-12 and Big Ten focused on figuring out how to balance the playing the field of college football. Please, if for no other reason than to prevent any more tone-deaf rants by Swinney. The longer the college football conferences put off expanding the college football playoff, the wider the talent gaps will grow. The transfer portal isn't helping, and the impact of nil deals for players, while creating a few pleasant recruiting surprises around the country, isn't causing major shifts towards competitive balance anytime soon. It's just giving guys like Swinney high blood pressure. It's total chaos right now, tampering galore, Swinney said. Kids being manipulated, grass is greener and all that stuff as opposed to putting the work in and graduating. There's no consequences. So, now you've got agents and NIL, tampering, and you have no consequences. No consequences equals no conscience. There's no reason for pause, no barrier for young people. Like, nothing. Education is like the last thing now. Swinney is still good for a laugh, so at least that hasn't changed. For major college football, education was the last thing a long time ago, so the moral facade to Swinney's collapsing house at Clemson smells of cheap veneer and classic deflection. He's just mad because he's losing, and he knows deep down that what Clemson had only a few years ago probably isn't coming back anytime soon. Texas A&M, Alabama and Georgia were the top 3 schools in the recruiting rankings after Wednesday, followed by a considerable gap in talent ratings, and then Ohio State and Texas rounded out the top 5. The SEC had 12 of its affiliated teams among the top 24, so half, but if we're counting future members Texas and Oklahoma, then it's 14. These current recruiting classes are far from finalized. More players will sign after official visits this weekend, and then more after the holidays. National Signing Day, the one that used to be celebrated annually like a holiday, is on February 2nd. There's still a lot of time for Alabama to poach everyone's best player, in other words. Related, every recruit from Auburn's signing class. GOODMAN, with Bo Nix gone, Auburn is searching for an identity. On Wednesday night, former 5-star LSU cornerback Eli Ricks announced he was leaving for the Crimson Tide. Ricks will likely start next year for Alabama. Last year, the Tide grabbed Ohio State's Jameson Williams and Tennessee's Henry Tutu out of the transfer portal. Williams is now a first-team All-American receiver, and Tutu was 4th in the SEC in tackles and named a second-team All-Conference defender. Good for them. Bad news for everyone else. The message is clear. Transfer to Alabama to compete for national championships. There are so many ways to frame Alabama's dominance of college football, but this blew me away. After the first day of the early national signing period, Alabama had more new players rated among the top 100 prospects than all the teams in the ACC combined, and that margin is probably going to grow. The ACC came out of Wednesday's signing bonanza with only 3 teams in the top 25, North Carolina, Florida State and Clemson. FSU made headlines, but not the way any FSU fan could have believed in 1,000 years. The number 1 rated recruit in the country, cornerback Travis Hunter, was committed to the Seminoles but flipped to Jackson State, which is coached by former FSU star Deion Sanders. Hunter is a trendsetter in this new age of NIL, and and should be commended for his choice to elevate the profile of HBCU football, but nil isn't slowing down the SEC. Players will have more opportunities to make money in the conference that's KOing college football. Go back to the week before Clemson upset Alabama for the second time in the national championship game. It was January 2019, and everyone was in Northern California because of course that's where a college football national championship should be played. Swinney and his Tigers had a movie night together before the big game, and Clemson's coach queued up Rocky 3 in the team hotel. That's the one where Rocky knocks out Clubber Lang. The little old Clemson Tigers gave it their best shot, but pity the fools who thought the fight was even just beginning. Joseph Goodman is a columnist for the Alabama Media Group. He's on Twitter at Joe Goodman Jr. His new book, We Want Bama, A Season of Hope and the Making of Nick Saban's Ultimate Team, is available wherever books are sold.